boys and girls, Miss Noble here, and today's science lesson is going to be about the different parts of a tree. Okay, so I know that I've been telling you 1,000 times a day that when you do your writing to label, right? So we are going to label the parts of a tree right now. And you don't actually have to do this today, or you don't have to do what I'm doing today. You might want to go back to yesterday's tree picture that you made and try to label that, okay? So I have 4 parts to tell you about, and then 1 overall thing. So my 4 parts of a tree that I want to tell you about, one is the trunk. Now the trunk of the tree is this big part down here, and I know it's a little glary and a little bit hard for you to see. Here you go. So this part right here, this is the trunk of the tree. It's like the body of the tree. It's the big part that you walk past where you touch the bark. This is the trunk of the tree right here. Can everybody say trunk? All right, awesome. The next part of a tree that I want to tell you about is all these little guys down here. And if you notice, this is the ground, okay? This is where the ground would be here. And all this is going on underneath the ground. Okay, so I know it's a little glary. I'm trying to fix it there. So this down here, these are called roots. And roots are important because that's how trees get their water and their nutrients from the soil and the dirt. And they suck it up right up through the trunk, and it feeds the rest of the tree. So roots are super duper important, and they go down into the ground, okay? So we have our trunk and we have our roots so far. The next thing I'd like to talk to you about is coming up the trunk of the tree. You see all these little pieces going out in all different crazy directions. And do you guys know what those are called? They are called branches, right? You probably already knew that. So these are all the branches coming off, all these brown parts, okay? They're like smaller versions of the trunk. They feel the same, they look the same, they're just smaller, and they kind of spread out all over the place. Those are the branches. And the last part we're going to talk about is what grows on the branches. What grows on trees? The leaves, right? All this green stuff in here is the leaves. So now you've talked about 4 parts, right? We have the roots down at the bottom, the trunk of the tree, the branches, and the leaves. Okay, so I think you guys are going to help me now to label my parts of a tree, okay? So let's see. Let's start with this one. This word right here says b. What do you think it says? B. What part of a tree starts with the b sound? It's branches. Branches. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the part of my tree that looks like branches. It's not down here. It's not here. And I'm looking up here, and I don't know if you can see too close from where you are, but I have 1 dot that's in the green and 1 dot that's in the brown. So my branches would go over here by the brown part, right? Because the branches are kind of like the trunk. All right, my next thing I want to try to talk about, let's label this one. And this one says trunk. Trunk. Okay, so the trunk of my tree is right here, right? That big part that holds everything up is the trunk. 2 more things to label. One of them, we don't know this letter yet, right? But that's okay. Maybe some of you know it. That is an L. An L says oh, so leaves. The leaves. So I'm going to look at my tree, and where do I think the leaves go? You think they go down here or up here? I'm going to tell you they go up here, right into the green part. The leaves are green. Even though right now in the fall, our leaves are changing colors, right? Most of the time they're green. And the last thing I'm going to label are my roots. Roots, okay? And we talked about the roots. They're that thing that go down into the ground, and they help the tree grow by getting all the nutrients from the ground. So I'm going to stick that label right here. And then, now that I've labeled the parts of my tree, right? my branches, my leaves, my trunk, and my roots. There's one more dot up here for me to label. You know what's gonna go there? So simple, right? This whole thing is a tree, right? So that whole label is gonna go up here in the corner to say tree. Now tomorrow you're gonna have, tomorrow you're gonna have a paper to color in the parts of a tree. But today, all I want you to do is kind of think about this, look at it, and if you still have your tree picture from yesterday that you drew, you can go ahead and try to label that picture, okay? One more part of a tree that's not on here, but it will be on your paper tomorrow. Have you ever been walking along the road and you see like sticks on the ground, right? And they fall out of the trees and you're kind of wondering like, that's too little to be a branch, right? Those little pieces, like those little sticks that fall out of the trees, we call those twigs, okay? And they would be like little tiny things that jut off of the branches. Now I don't have one here because they'd be so little, but I bet you've seen a twig or two laying around, okay? So those are all the parts of a tree, and I hope you have a fabulous day. Bye-bye, boys and girls.